Hey there, and welcome to the IT Guy Show. It's great to be back. This is episode 9. I know it's been a long time, but really excited to be back in the big chair and recording new episodes. I've got probably close to a dozen topics already lined up, scheduled, ready to go. So, really excited to be back with you. It's good to be hosting a podcast again. But enough about that, because today I have a slightly different style topic for you today. Usually focus on enterprise and things that affect systems administrators or career type conversations. But today I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into something I wish was more of a thing, and that's convergence. And that is the idea that you carry a single device, whether it's a phone form factor or maybe a tablet, and be able to plug it into a dock and go from more of a tablet style workflow to a laptop or desktop style with a single device. That really appeals to me. I travel from time to time. I try to get out of my office more nowadays, go work from a coffee shop or take myself out to lunch. So the idea of being able to start a project on my tablet and then take it out with me, take it out to lunch and get some work done there, and then come home and then go, well, I've got that podcast episode I've got to edit. So let me plug this into my dock, and it's got an external GPU, and now I can do things like video rendering, that kind of thing. So that's the idea behind convergence. And some time ago, Canonical with Ubuntu and Unity was trying to accomplish that. And at one point, they just stopped. And so then we got the UBports project and the community built around that. And so I actually got in touch with a member of Lomiri, which is the rebranded Ubuntu Touch project. And so my guest today, his name is Erik, and he and I are going to sit down, and I wanted to talk to him about where is convergence, what is Lomiri, and when can I get rid of all these different devices and have just one? So with that said, let me bring on my guest, Mr. Erik Mols. So Erik, welcome to the IT Guy Show. I'm really glad that you set aside some time to join me.
Yes, I'm happy to be here.
Now, for those of you listening to the audio, that's Erik with a K. I'm Erik with a C. So in case you get confused, now we can differentiate.
You are quite a young Erik. Erik was a very popular name back in the early 70s.
Well, I'll try not to take too much offense to that. I'm an 80s baby.
So yeah, I had once one class I was in with 5 other Eriks.
Oh gosh,
really something. But yeah, it's mine's with a K. Yeah. So, and of course, if people write me email, they always use the C. And probably when they write you email, they always use the K. So people always tend to mess that up.
Right. I run into that all the time. One last Erik story for the audience, and then we'll dive in. But this cracks me up. So the moniker, the brand, if you will, Erik the IT Guy, came because I used to be involved with a Mumble-based podcast community, and there was an Ubuntu Studio developer whose Mumble handle was Erik. But he spells his name E-R-I-C-H. My last name is Hendricks, so a lot of places I'd be E-R-I-C-H and then the rest of my name. And it became very confusing to be talking about Erik Hendricks versus Erik with CH. So I found a way to differentiate myself as Erik the IT Guy, or IT Guy Erik, as all my social media handles are. So I think it was Eric Eckelmeyer is still involved with the Ubuntu Studio community, and so thank you for helping me come up with Erik the IT Guy. But we're not here to talk about the IT Guy. We're here to talk about Erik with a K and your project. But let's start with a little bit about who you are and what you do for a living.
So so my name is Erik Mols. I turn 55 next Thursday. So
happy birthday!
Already quite long active. I started with open source back, I think, in 1993. when I installed my first Linux version. I cannot say distro because it was before the distro, right?
Very true.
So I studied bioinformatics, and I have been a professor of bioinformatics and software engineering for now almost 30 years. In 2017, I basically quit. I started my own business. And back in 2022, I started Open Source Science, which is basically an educational institute solely focused on open source technology. And with Open Source Science, we have embraced and we support the Lomiri project. So, and then, of course, I can tell now what the Lomiri project is. If I don't, you will ask me. So
it's like you know what I'm going to ask.
So okay, yeah. Well, the basically Lomiri is what we used to call in Linux a desktop environment. Now Linux distributions tend to call it an operating environment, like it's something completely different. In my opinion, it's not. But okay. So what is Lomiri? Lomiri is a lightweight desktop environment, operating environment, originally made by Canonical. They orphaned the project, I think, back in 2014. Then it was taken over by a community. That community is the UBports community, and they are responsible for Ubuntu Touch. And Ubuntu Touch is, it's running on this phone.
Very nice.
Ubuntu Touch is basically an operating system. It's a full-fledged Linux operating system on mobile phones. Then specifically two types of mobile phones. That is Android-based mobile phones, and the even better, but they are very seldom. They are very rare. That's the mobile phones without any Android part, like the Pine phone, if you know the Pine phone.
Yes.
And then you can fully run Ubuntu Touch on it. Ubuntu Touch uses the desktop environment Lomiri, which was created by the UBports community. But now Lomiri is becoming bigger, because Lomiri is, since April 2025, also accepted by both Debian and Arch Linux. Not in the, let's say, not in the full versions, but in the test versions is present. So you could install Lomiri on a Debian or an Arch Linux instance, and then you have.
And I believe Fedora as well.
I don't think so yet. I know
I think it's an experiment.
Yes,
in
there is
Fedora. It's not one of the blessed
Red Hat group, and Red Hat Linux interest group in Lomiri. Because Lomiri, although you could say it's like in a beta state, would you want to use it as a daily driver? Maybe in half a year, maybe in a year, it needs to become a little bit more stable. But it's the really unique thing about Lomiri. It's fully convergent, which means if you create an app that runs on your computer with Lomiri, that app can also be installed on your phone with Lomiri, or your smartwatch with Lomiri, or your smart TV with Lomiri. So basically, you can create one app that runs on all devices, and which adapts itself automatically to the screen size.
Hmm.
If programmed correctly, of course. And we are not there yet, because a lot of the apps which are developed for Ubuntu Touch are not developed by the developer with the convergence in mind. So then if you click on, and I can't show you because it's a different system, different monitor, but if I click my, and this is a Fairphone 5, if I click it into my docking station, it will just pop up on the screen, big screen, my keyboard, my mouse. I use it, I open an app, and the app will go full screen. You won't notice that you're not working on a phone. You're basically working on a full-fledged Linux computer, which is running from a phone. So that's what Lomiri brings. And as far as I know, there's no other desktop environment which can offer this. So for us, it's important, and that's why we jumped in.
So it's been a really interesting journey to watch this space, because I remember, gosh, over a decade ago, before UBports was a community, before all of this convergence talk, Canonical, Mark Shuttleworth had this idea of convergence, to where you basically would carry around a mobile device and you could plug it into a dock, and everything that was on your mobile device would then be on a screen. You could use mouse and keyboard. And Canonical had all these great plans around Ubuntu. They announced Unity 8, and Unity 8 was going to be like the next big thing. It was going to blow GNOME and KDE's Plasma out of the water, and Convergence. And I mean, there was just so much hype. And as a technologist who travels from time to time, all that sounded just beautiful.
Yeah, Lomiri is Unity 8. It's the same.
Right. And what happened, for the sake of our audience, what happened was Canonical one day just abandoned it. Just said, Unity 8, no, we're not going to do it. This idea of Ubuntu Touch, this idea of convergence, they just shelved the entire thing. But as my esteemed buddy Erik here can attest, that is the beauty and the power of the open source community, is that the community ended up resurrecting Unity and Ubuntu Touch. And that's where we eventually ended up with Lomiri, is that the community has been working on Ubuntu Touch, been working on, it's now called the UBports project. There's a huge community, and even today there's a huge following of developers and enthusiasts who are working on this. And here we are a decade later, and you look at the likes of Google and Apple, and there isn't convergence yet.
No.
Instead, I'm a self-proclaimed Apple addict. I've been stuck in the ecosystem for a long time, and even today, I have 3 devices sitting on my laptop or sitting on my desk, and the 3 of them still don't quite talk to each other the way I want. In fact, my iPad is almost as powerful as the laptop that's sitting on my desk, and yet I still can't really plug it in to a mouse and keyboard and use it like I would a computer. You can blow up the apps to a larger size, but it's still very clunky. And so, Apple's played with this approach. I don't know that Google's really tried. There's the likes, you're talking about convergence and docks. There's the likes of the Samsung DeX, DEX.
Yeah.
And they're getting there, but none of these have the power of the open source community behind them. So I think it's up to us to do that.
Second version. Second version of DeX, yeah.
And so you'd hinted that UBports and Lomiri are one and the same. So could you talk us through that transition?
UBports is the community. Ubuntu Touch is the operating system. And Lomiri is basically the new name of Unity 8. And that's done, I think, because of copyrights things. That the UBports community wanted to give it their own name, so they could protect it better. And of course, you never knew what companies like Canonical do. Yeah, like the UBports community is allowed to use the Ubuntu logo as one of the only derivatives from the Ubuntu tree. They are one of the only ones who are allowed to use the logo and who are allowed to use the name Ubuntu. But the community also said, let's protect Lomiri just for the sake of, we never know what happens if Canonical turns right or turns left.
Mm-hmm.
You never know what's going to happen. So it's better than to have our own brand, which we can also use. And we are now in the middle of also of rebranding Lomiri. And that's basically because the whole coloring of Lomiri is giving you the idea that it's for Ubuntu, right? It's all orange. And so, and we want to pick other communities to pick it up. And so next week I'm going to the DebConf, the big Debian conference in France, which we sponsor, and where our main Lomiri programmer and project leader is giving a talk about Lomiri, and I'll be there just to show it to people on my hopefully then arrived laptop with the RISC-V processor and Lomiri running on it.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So yeah, it's important developments, and I really believe that people would like to have one operating environment that runs on all systems. That's because it makes it much easier, like you said, with your Apple devices. Makes it much easier to connect them to each other, to exchange data if they're all running on the same framework. Yeah.
And like I'm one of the weird people that don't like to have multiple systems sitting around. I would like to have one device, take it with me everywhere, and be able to plug it into different form factors. Like if I could carry it around in my pocket like a phone, and then take that same operating system, the same layout, and put it into a tablet while I'm sitting on the couch and reading, and then I can put it into a laptop to be able to just work with me on a flight. And then let's say I'm getting ready to work on this show, and I could really use a GPU. I'd love to be able to just put it into a dock, have all my preferences, have all my settings, have everything go with me. But today we don't have that ability. But that's kind of the idea behind Convergence, is you have one single operating system, one single instance that you take with you, and then be able to put it into different form factors to be able to use for different use cases. And for me, that would be so ideal. And in fact, I could get rid of all the hardware sitting on my desk, and I'd buy like two of the same thing. That way I had the hardware redundancy.
Yeah, and I can imagine why it's not happening in proprietary space. But then I need to think, and I need also a bit, maybe like we would call that in Dutch advocaat van de duivel, which just means the devil's advocate. Or lawyer of the devil, meaning what evil plans are behind this, right? If Apple would succeed in building Convergence, then you wouldn't have bought 3 devices.
That's true.
You would have bought 1 device. The same for Samsung. Samsung also sells computers. And they sell phones. If it's fully convergent, then you will buy 1 device. So I think that plays a role in this.
Yeah, I could see that. That's really unfortunate, though, because I think it's a use case that so many different people would subscribe to be able to have the power of a desktop, but carry it around in your pocket when you're not at your desk.
And looking at the hardware, it should be possible. If you look at the the top level phones which come out, they are more powerful than mid tier laptops.
Mhm.
So it's possible. Only now they have to build operating systems to do this. And if they don't do it, then for sure initiatives like Lomiri can take on and become bigger. I like the ideas. In the UBports community are about, I think, 1,000 developers, from which 300 are active and maybe 150 are very active.
Mm.
Now,
That's really impressive numbers for an open source project.
Yeah, but most people are building apps, right?
Mm.
They're not working on the operating system itself. They are building apps, and that's all kind of people. So, and that's important because apps are needed, and Ubuntu Touch does not run Android apps like many of the other. And I don't want to offend other people who build operating systems on phones, but most, in all honesty, are less more than a skin around a de-googled Android device.
Very true.
Sorry, Graphene OS, but yeah, they don't like that. But for me, if you can install Android apps, then you know what's it. It's basically an Android with a big skin around it, de-googled as best as possible, and the intentions are good. And I understand why they do it, because it's very difficult to build a working phone from scratch. And like also, if you look at Ubuntu Touch, 2 versions there are. You have the mainline, which there are almost no phones which can run the mainline. A few tablets and a couple of phones, but that's all I think ARM based mostly. And like the Pine 64, both the phone and the tablet, but that's basically it. And they can run without a Helium layer. All other phones, if you take a Google Pixel phone or you take the Fairphone 5, then you have the Ubuntu Touch with the Helium layer, and the Helium layer is basically a small part of Android which controls the hardware. And there on top of that, then is the Ubuntu Touch Linux, which is still more than a lot of the others, but it's not yet everything.
So what's running under the hood? You know, we kind of talked about the hardware, the abstraction layer. So you mentioned it's still basically Ubuntu running underneath. Are we running one of the LTS versions of Ubuntu? What does that look like right now?
I think the current version is 2404.
Oh, I didn't know if that project had been completed. I know last I checked in with the project, the migration from 2004 to 2404 was underway.
Yeah, I think it's 2404 now.
Oh, that's amazing.
Could look at mine, and that was a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
And there are still things that need to be done, like VoIP support.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly because I am not running into that problem, but I know there are some countries where you can't call with your Ubuntu Touch phone. But that has to do with I think if they use 3 or 4 or 5G, I don't know exactly the details of that, but there are countries where you can't call with your Ubuntu Touch phone. And that's basically because the net provider is not offering the necessary service.
Yes,
and therefore VoIP would be ideal if we could get that up and running. But yeah, I'm not part of the Ubuntu Touch project. I'm merely the education guy. Flew in because we wanted to make the UBports community not only bigger but also better educated.
So on the education front, I understand that you used to use Lomiri as part of your teaching approach.
Yeah, Lomiri. Yeah,
Setting students up as developers.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's the case. But that's the case with all our education. So we have multiple programs. Basically, we started building a 4-year bachelor curriculum, and that's done. You can do that, but nobody does that. People want shorter education, and they want to get hands-on help, and they want to, basically, most of them want to work at the open source company, right? And we are connected to, we have about 40 partnerships with open source companies and projects. That's often almost the same. Sometimes it's the same, sometimes it's both. And they give us projects, and yeah, we put students on those projects. The companies support that, and then we hope that from that comes a nice solution. Or that, like we in February, we organized a big hackathon, international, where in total 24 universities participated from 12 countries worldwide. We had 790 students programming in that. And basically, the winning team all got job offers.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. And frankly, that's how the education system should be. I mean, my education back in the, we won't say out loud, fine. Back in the early 2000s, I already admitted to being an 80s baby, so people could do the math. When I was going for my bachelor's and eventually my master's, my education was so far behind the technology curve, and it was so hyper focused on Cisco switches. I think I had one class on Linux, and none of that was on the open source community. None of it focused on free and open source software. I mean, it was behind the times.
Yeah, that's my business partner said he has a couple of companies, and they all run on open source, fully on open source. And he said to me, that was the reason that we started. He said, I need to improve the sustainability of open source. And normally, when people say I need to improve the sustainability of open source, they normally mean I need more money, right? That was not what he meant. He said, Erik, everybody who leaves university and wants to come to work at one of my companies knows nothing about open source. They haven't seen open source. They are not trained in open source. They don't know the difference between open source and proprietary. And in all honesty, they don't care also, most of them. So we need to change that. So that's our mission. Our mission is to make open source bigger and better, and basically also to help the companies who need open source engineers to get them. And from my background, like before we started recording, I'm originally a bioinformatician. And if you go into the field of bioinformatics, you will see it breathes open source. But that's basically because we had problems 30 years ago, which nobody could solve. I remember a time when I was professor of bioinformatics at a Dutch university, and then I was running a big Postgres cluster with all kinds of genomics data on it. And it was a big cluster. It had a size of about 5 petabytes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's DNA. When you start delving into DNA and you start storing lots of DNA, it really becomes a lot of data in a short time period. So then my director told me, "Oh, Erik, there is this guy from Oracle, and he wants to talk to you. And yeah, I think you should talk to him." So and then okay. So then the guy said to me, "So I really understand you use PostgreSQL for your education to the students, and okay, wouldn't it be better if you would use Oracle?" Then I said, "Well, I don't think that Oracle can handle such large amounts of data as we are storing in our Postgres database." He was a little bit offended. I said, "Oracle can handle all kinds of data sizes." Then I said, "Okay, we have a cluster here running 5 petabytes." And then he said, "That does not exist, so much data." I said, "Well, maybe that's part of your problem." Then he said, "Oh, well, just come next week. You come a weekend over to Geneva in Switzerland, take your wife with you, and we will convince you should start using Oracle." So I politely refused, but that's what's happening, right? And in Europe, it's all what we call that in Dutch, behind the elbows. So it's in full secrecy. But in the USA, they blatantly advertise with it. If you go to an American university, you will see, to the IT study, you will just see sponsored by Microsoft, by Oracle, by Cisco. So you know the curriculum before you go to it. It's paid by them. So, of course, you will not learn anything about open source. Which is strange, because 98%, no, 89% of all servers worldwide run on Linux. Also their servers. Yeah. I still don't understand that.
So let me pick your brain for a second, and hopefully the audience will indulge a little bit of a side trail here. I recently announced that I'm going to work for Johnson County Community College out in the Kansas City metro area in the heartland of the United States. I'm starting as an adjunct professor this fall, so I'll be teaching my first class here in just a few weeks, and I'm really looking forward to it. And it's an Introduction to Linux 2 class, so it's based on the LPIC 101-500 exam.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to it, and I really want to bring my open source experience to bear. What advice would you give to a new or even a seasoned professor that or teacher that's involved with Linux computers and open source?
Oh, that's a good one.
I know, complete curveball we didn't talk about beforehand. So
no. It doesn't. So when I was in your shoes, as we say in Dutch, we have a lot of figurative speech in Dutch, and you should learn that because you have a Dutch family name, like I already said.
I didn't know that. You pointed that out to me in the pre-show, so I'm eager to go and dive into my family history.
Yeah, for sure. I know for sure. I have a couple of Hendricks in my family tree. Yeah, but it's quite common name, and you can see with the CK in it that it's yeah. They were quite early, I think, with getting to the USA. Yeah. But so when I had my first Linux 101 and 102 group, that was, I think, back in 1999 or 2000, something like that. It was quite a struggle. Because the students basically were asking me, why do we have to do this? It's so different from my Windows system. And in my Windows system, I can find everything. And here I have to learn everything anew. So that was quite a thing. But when you have people really interested in it, yeah, it's very nice. And the main issues we had in those days was the difference between distributions. And then mainly the the different package managers, and then also the different locations where the software would be installed.
Mm.
So you would install, let's say, program X, and then it would have a dependency with program Y. And during the installation, you would get an error message that program Y is not on your system, but you think, but it is there. And then you have to edit basically the install script and to write at a different location. And that is just too much for students who just start with Linux.
Mm.
So
I'm sure there's a bunch of us sysadmins out in the audience that are going, just check the path, just update the path variable. It's fine.
Yeah, most important, I think, is they should install it as a primary operating system for themselves.
Totally agree.
If you, and that happens a lot, of course, people have to learn Linux. They do that on their trusted Windows environment. So then they install a virtual machine software, like Oracle's VirtualBox, which is open source. It's one of the few open source projects of Oracle. And then they install it virtually. But if their computer hasn't the best specs, then you can imagine how the Linux distribution will be running on their virtual operating system. And they cannot enjoy their Linux installment as good as that they would have installed it natively.
Agreed.
So they should install native. But of course, you will have colleague professors who give other subjects. And if there are subjects where they need Windows computers for, so my first advice would be try to find out if there's any obligation to using Windows or Mac or whatever, because that can happen. And that, of course, is not convenient for teaching Linux. But are you only going to teach Linux or other subjects too?
Just I'm an adjunct professor, so I'm only teaching one course. I'm a product marketer by day.
Okay. So it's just a job next to your other job.
Yep. So we took a couple of side trails, but did we kind of cover everything you wanted to talk about with Lomiri?
I think we covered everything about Lomiri. And people can go, if they go to the Open Source Science website, they can find soon they can find the Lomiri project page there, because it will be more up to date than the Lomiri project page itself, because there are still a lot of broken links there and they need to update it. But yeah, it's community, so you can't force people in the community. So and we will start hopefully from next week onwards. We start offering bounties. We have developed a crowd. We call it the crowd bounty software program. So basically, you know bug bounties, right? And in my personal opinion, bug bounties are not honest.
Interesting. Why do you say that?
Yeah, what's not honest on it? Well, 100 people can invest a lot of time to try to solve the same bug, and often in security is that. And then the one who writes his report as first gets the money. We don't want that. We don't want that people invest weeks of time in building software to see that the prize money is snatched away just before they reach the final. So that we didn't want. And we couldn't find an honest piece of software, so we have developed that ourselves. So basically, but it's a smart one. So I don't know if it's in the full version already available, but it runs on Odoo. We run all our business processes on Odoo Community, right? You have Odoo Enterprise, you have Odoo Community. We run it on Odoo Community. So we have developed an Odoo plugin to just put the bounties there. But it's a smart one. So if, for example, the university you're going to work at says, hey, this is interesting, we also want to run the bug bounty program, and you have an Odoo instance, you can install the same module, and you can say, oh, we team up with open source science. And then both instances will replicate the bounties on both sides. So you can get a decentralized bounty network. That's basically the idea. And we know we are going to run it. UBports is going to run it. And we hope that in the future, more open source projects will join us, run the bug bounty or the crowd bounty software, so that we can create an environment where we, in all honesty, can pay developers for work that they are doing. So we're trying to make some of the open source communities more sustainable by integrating it into the businesses.
I'll have to chew on that. I'll have to look at Charles' approach to the bug bounty program, because that's not a problem I had really thought about. I mean, most of the time we're just trying to convince organizations to use or sponsor a bug bounty program. Didn't really give much thought to the fact that someone could have developed a more elegant solution, but yet they don't get reimbursed for it because someone else, as you said, beat them to the prize money. Yeah. So that's an interesting problem, and not one I realized was a problem in open source. Maybe worth a future discussion.
I think that the problem is more viewable, noticeable in software projects than in security projects. Because a lot of the bugs in security projects are things you can do in 1 or 2 days. And that's, of course, okay, it's still not nice if somebody else beats you, but heck, it's 1 day or it's 2 days. But if you have developed software for a month because you wanted that prize money, and now somebody else just beat you with 1 hour, we are afraid not only that it's not honest, but we're also afraid that we will lose a soul to the open source community. Somebody who is so disappointed that he will never do that again, and that we do not want.
Right.
So in our system, you can claim or pre-claim or park a bug for a period of time. And let's say we are expecting that this development takes 4 weeks. So you want to build it, you can park it for 6 weeks. If you do not deliver in 6 weeks, we will open it up again, and other people can then try to park it. So that's the idea behind it.
So more of an open source contractor board than bug bounty.
Yeah, something like that.
I think that's a very elegant solution.
Yeah, and we are talking with interested people. Like I'm talking also with Brian Osborne, who is the owner of the Linux magazine. He lives in Germany. So, and he also runs the biggest website in open source jobs worldwide. Forgot the name, but yeah. So
no worries.
There are a lot of possibilities there, and also why you often see these memes where people say, "Oh yeah, I stopped developing open source money because I need to feed my kids." Why? Yeah, there are a lot of companies making a lot of money in open source. So why can't we create an environment where we can also, and like if you look at projects which are fully open source community projects, like let's say Thunderbird, mail client. You know how that's financed, Thunderbird?
It's not sponsored by the Mozilla Foundation anymore, is it?
No, it's fully donation.
Mm.
So I spoke to the CEO, I think a year ago, and then they had, I think in 2023, they had about $15 million in donations.
Oh wow!
But that is still people giving money. That are often not companies, but just people like you and me sitting at home, paying money. So there are people who are willing to pay money for open source software. It's not about the money, and that's what Richard Stallman also often has said. Free software doesn't mean that it's gratis. De facto, you still can be possible that you need to pay for it. So why not make a healthy environment where people get an honest pay for the work they've done?
Very true.
At least the possibility that they get an honest pay. And if there are enough people who are willing to pay, then a bounty system can facilitate that. At least that's what we think.
Well, Eric, any closing thoughts for our audience?
Visit the Open Source Science website. I'm sure you will mention our URL or URI.
For sure. Any links or projects that we've discussed will definitely end up in the show notes, as well as links to the podcast channel, whether that's audio or whether you're watching video. But Eric, I really appreciate your time, and hope to have you on the IT Guy show again sometime soon.
Yeah, we'll see. And good luck with your job as a professor.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to it. As much as I've grown to love product marketing over the last few years, really excited to be a teacher. It was a career path adjustment that I never imagined I would have pursued, but interviewed and really loved the idea.
Thank you for your hospitality, and see you.
You're welcome. You're welcome back anytime to talk about anything you'd like.
That's good. Okay.
Thank you, Eric, so much. I really appreciate you jumping in. I just now noticed that there's some weirdness with the video recording. It's not supposed to go back and forth. The recording's supposed to have a side-by-side. I just thought maybe that was just me, but apparently not. So sorry about that. But Eric, thank you for joining me. Really appreciate it. This has been episode 9 of the IT Guy Show. A little bit different topic today, but one that I'm excited about. Hopefully one day soon, might actually have to go out and get like a Pine Tab or something and start playing with Lomiri. But the idea of being able to have a single device really feels good. And it's great to see UBports and Ubuntu Touch and all that kind of thing moved into UBports, into the community, like a project, an open source project is supposed to. It's supposed to outlive the companies that built it, or in this case, outlive the company's interest in a project. And to be able to see that grow and expand and kind of shed the old shell of UBports and become Lomiri. So really excited to see where that goes. We'll keep an eye on that topic, and Eric will make sure to bring you back in sometime soon. If you enjoyed this topic, please leave me a comment, hit the like button, or reach out to me on our Discord server. I've got that up and running again. Until then, I've got our next episode already planned out. It'll be in 2 weeks. Christian Hernandez, a buddy of mine, former coworker, has gone through the data center administrator to systems administrator to now Kubernetes and vendor marketing journey. It's very similar to my path. And so he and I are going to sit down here in a couple of weeks and talk about GitOps and what that actually means. One of my favorite things to do on this show is to take dumb marketing terms. I say that as a marketing guy, taking dumb marketing terms and converting those those ideas into what is this really for you all, my audience. I really appreciate you tuning in. So looking forward to talking to Christian Hernandez about GitOps for the Linux Systems Administrator here in 2 weeks. Until then, make sure to check out the other episodes that I've got. This was episode 9, so you got 8 others you can binge in 2 weeks. So definitely appreciate y'all tuning in. Make sure to tell a friend, and until then, I will see you soon.